think the development of full artificial intelligence would spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
With a rocket or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. It was too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
You said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help me!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1 0 1 1 1 0 1 1 6 3 2
Media doesn't have your best interest in mind. The government is self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I am your host, Michael Strange. I am here with your co-host, Frank Pierce. And we would like to say hello to all of you who might also have troubled minds. As usual, we are recording this show live, so if you'd like to be part of the show, the number to call is 702-957-1037. It's right there on the stream. I'll flash it from time to time, and I'll say it over and over through the whole show here. 702-957-1037. And we're going to talk about some exciting things tonight. We're going to talk about a place we haven't been yet. We've flirted with it just a little bit, but we haven't actually gone there. And tonight, that's right, we're going there. We're going to talk about Atlantis and some of the ancient mystery that surrounds that place. If you've ever heard of it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, perfect. You came to the right place at the right time. So this show, if you guys are new, what we like to do here is we'd like to dig into some of the questions that don't get asked. We think a lot of the mainstream media, we think a lot of the government narratives, and we think the major corporations, the technocracy, so to speak. We think that the narrative they try to feed us is not valid. As human beings, we say it does not compute. So we can throw right back at you and ask our own questions. So that's why we're here. That's what we do, and all of that, all of those good things. So one more time, this is live. If you'd like to be part of the show, 702-957-1037. Just call in and say hi. Jump on Discord, and we'll put you on the show. You can talk to Mike and Frank. But before we even get there, ladies and gentlemen, your co-host, Frank Pierce.
Hello, I'm Frank Pierce, and we're back again. The more and more we do this show, the more troubled my mind gets. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And we have a very troubling topic today. Very far-reaching, very troubling topic. Potentially the suppression of our history. Telling us something. Making a history for us that didn't really happen. We'll get into that. One part ancient history tonight. One part schizophrenia, maybe. And one part entertainment. So hopefully that mix will lead to an entertaining show. But with that, let's get into it.
All right, you're freaking me out. Okay, so the way we do this is we're going to do some news first, like we always do. We're going to pick some news articles and go over a few. And we think this is stuff that the media doesn't give enough attention to. So we're gonna go through some of this. We're going to talk about this stuff, and then we're going to get on to the main topic tonight, which is going to be Atlantis and the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. So if you guys are into that stuff, then one more time, you're in the right place. So hang around, and we'll get to that in a sec. But for right now, a couple shout-outs, and then we'll do some news. Fred gets first. What's up? Hey, Fred. And then we got Jason, Dave, Francisco, Ernie, and Ray. What's up, guys? Thanks for showing up. And here we go. Let's do some news. What do we got first, Frank?
Okay, we've been following this story for quite some time now. Still no arrests after alleged child porn at the Sunspot Observatory. Let's pull that up from cobb.com. Now, this is the local news station who have actually decided to dig into this story a little bit more. So we're getting a few more details on the Sunspot Observatory. Now, we've been following this for a while, but in case you're not familiar, some months down out of the blue, FBI rolled up, helicopters flying through the air. Simultaneous with that, we had other webcams and other things shut down at other observatories around the world. And there was no explanation for this. There was no... The FBI didn't say anything. The local police didn't know anything, and they evacuated the entire area. Now, there have been some gossip and hearsay about dead bodies found in the hills and other types of dangerous criminals nearby, but finally we're getting some more details here. So, one email shows that it was the FBI's suggestion to close down the site, even though the NMSU police, which are the local police, disagreed with the situation. So they knew something, and previous to this, we hadn't heard that. We heard the police had no idea what was going on. Another email said that the federal authorities have a moral obligation to update employees on the investigation. And yet, they didn't do that. And finally here, we see that in an email sent to Cobb on Thursday, McKeeter, who's one of the guys who runs this place, said he believes the janitor no longer works at the site. Now that's interesting the way he phrased that. He said he believes the janitor no longer works there. The janitor, again, was the one accused of having this laptop to distribute child pornography. The reason this place, the official explanation for this place being shut down. But he says he believes the janitor no longer works there. And again, no charges have been filed against this guy. So it's interesting, you know, they're digging into this local news organization, they're asking questions, and still they're getting stonewalled. They don't know if the janitor works there. They should know that. They don't know why there haven't been any charges made for these crimes. And the local police apparently knew about this the entire time, and they were also failing to disclose the information. What do you think about this?
I think it still reeks of suspicion. You don't send Black Hawk helicopters. You don't send the FBI, the entire goon squad, for one laptop with child porn. You just don't do it. So I don't know exactly what's happening here, if this is an after-the-fact finger-pointing type of affair, you know what I mean? Where you have the local police saying, we didn't know anything, and the FBI saying, yes, they did. So it's still okay. So if this is finger-pointing after the fact, if you guys recall this story, it was kind of a big to-do. The Sunspot Solar Observatory and some other ones actually closed down at around the same time. And what we're looking at is child porn that caused all of this, apparently. So again, none of this is adding up. None of it makes sense. We get some finger pointing. It doesn't surprise me that that's happening, because it kind of always happens when you have situations like this where people don't really want to be transparent. So they kind of, they do this, you know, they point fingers at each other. But beyond that, it's still, the guy doesn't work there, they believe. And here we are with still no new information. and child porn and no arrests, and it still stinks to high heaven to me. I don't understand this, and we're gonna keep an eye because it's bad. What do you guys think? Is this one of those? I don't know. It's definitely a cover up. That is for sure. For near certain.
You know what it sounds to me is if this janitor doesn't even exist. He's just a made up fictional character that they've put in place and accused of a crime, but he doesn't even exist. He hasn't been charged. No one knows if he works there or not. No one knows his name. No one knows anything about him. It sounds like he's entirely made up.
Yeah, similar to that. What would you call it? The guy from the Vegas shooting, right? Remember that guy? The security guard that was on nobody's employee list and disappeared shortly after the shooting when everybody was trying to get him on TV. Kind of suspicious again. So I don't know. We're going to keep an eye on this like we have been, but it just seems not right. Nothing about this seems right, because if they have the guy dead to rights, it's his laptop, why is he not arrested? It's too much. It's too much BS here. So anyway, what do you guys think? Cover up, I think, for sure. Again, no definite evidence to follow that up on my part. I can't point to this and say this is why, but I can tell you it looks suspicious. So there's my take. Anyway, okay. All right. What else do we got there, Frank? This one.
Yeah, I don't know about this one. It's a difficult topic to talk about, too, because of the accusations. If you say child pornography, well, I don't want to sound like I'm defending that whatsoever, but it just seems like a hollow excuse at this point. Anyway, let's move on from that. So we've had some interesting space accidents, let's call them that, recently. Space problems. So let's open this article here. Another NASA space telescope has gone into safe mode. So let me go back in the chronology of this thing. Let's summarize the space accidents in the last couple months. First, the rover on Mars disappears, buried under the sand. Second, we get drill holes in the International Space Station. Third, the Soyuz rocket launch. It fails, and the astronauts have to eject halfway up. And they're banged up, but they're fine. Now we have here the Hubble telescope has entered safe mode after one of its gyroscopes failed. And then following that, the Chandra X-ray Observatory, so another spaceborne telescope similar to Hubble, has also failed, and they don't know why. So we're getting all this conflux of space disasters, space events. It's almost like, they don't want us to see something, right? Maybe I'm a little bit paranoid in thinking that. Maybe I'm losing it, but, they don't want us going into the space. That's why the Soyuz failed. They don't want us on the International Space Station. That's why someone is drilling holes in the damn thing. They don't want us looking up in the sky, sunspot. And now these other two telescopes in space have gone into safe mode, which means they're effectively shut down until they can diagnose and fix the problem. Interesting little arrangement here. So we're going to keep an eye on this too. What do you think about this one?
I think looking at the pictures and know what these things actually look like, it certainly seems like this is old technology again. It's the same song and dance. We're using technology from the 50s, and here we are looking at this stuff. It's shutting down. So is that plausibly deniable, or is this suspicious that a lot of things are happening at the same time? It is old technology, that's for sure. There's nothing brand new up there, at least that they're telling us. One more time, here we go with the tinfoil hats. If you want to put those on, we're okay with that. We do it ourselves from time to time. But if you have 50s technology that we're relying on today, of course you're going to expect some breakdowns here and there. But yeah, I don't know. In this particular thing, when you have a bunch of events at the same time, it looks suspicious. It looks like they're trying to cover things up. And if you're the government, right, you kind of can't win, because no matter what you do, people are going to accuse you of this or that or etc. But it's on them, because it's their own damn fault with their transparency and their lack of. I think that's what we're looking at here. So we'll keep an eye on it. Hopefully this is just something they'll fix it, and it'll keep on working, and we'll keep on finding nice things for them to Photoshop, because that's what NASA does. But for the time being, again, a little suspect, maybe a little suspicious, maybe not. But time will tell, right? If these things all shut down and don't come back online for some reason, maybe we have a problem there. What do you guys think? Is this suspicious, or is it 50s technology? I think there's a nice one way or the other you could probably point to and have an idea. But yeah, there we go. So all right, one more time. This is live, guys. So if you want to be part of the show, talk about this stuff that we're talking about, the number to call, 702-957-1037, or click on Discord. We're going to be talking about Atlantis in just a little bit, and the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And that's some pretty good stuff. But right now, we got a couple more news articles to finish. But if you want to be part of the show, we'll take your call and talk about the news. There's the phone number right on the screen. All right, what else we got there, Frank?
Just one more thing on that last story is the next big space event that's coming up is this Virgin Atlantic Richard Branson expedition into space. He's finally getting his craft up there. So if something goes wrong with that, that'll confirm my suspicions. But we'll pay attention to that. I think he's going up 2 weeks from now. So we'll keep an eye on that. Okay, let's move on. The mysterious moving white trail over China sparks UFO fear of top secret military experiment. So, over top, I got an autoplay going there.
Not anymore.
Over top of China, we see a mysterious white light trail that has been spotted in 4 different regions, prompting many onlookers to speculate about what's going on. So, oh, you're probably playing the video, but yeah, let's play that video and take a look at this, and maybe you can describe what you're seeing.
Okay, here we go. Action. It appears to be some nightlife going on with some happy people and some music, as you can hear. And it looks like it almost reminds me of that SpaceX launch, where there's something in the sky. It looks like it's got a trail behind it, like some kind of actual like rocket thrust, or gas kind of propelling whatever this thing is in the sky there. But interesting. It does look, but it's kind of curling. It looks like it came down and then back up.
Yeah, so, note the trajectory there. I think that's the important thing, is this thing is moving parallel to the ground. This is not going up. This is going from a height down to the ground and then parallel. So not a rocket launch, as we've seen before, because they're going to be heading in a single direction. They're going to be going straight up. So what is this? And we think we have an answer for this coming up in the next article, but this is pretty strange. Any thoughts on this one so far?
Just that trajectory looks a little bit strange to me. Like kind of down and up and loop-de-loo, like you're on a roller coaster. All right, on to the next one here. Trying to get to Atlantis, guys. We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually. It's been there for 12,000 years. It can wait a couple of minutes.
Perfect.
So, next article. What is that? So what was that thing we saw? And a couple of people think they have the answer here. Video appears to show China testing hypersonic glide vehicles via high-altitude balloon launch. So there's a great picture of this thing. But basically, the idea is they are testing hypersonic vehicles to deliver payloads to certain regions. So if you look at these things, they look like miniature little planes. They're streamlined effectively, and they have some kind of propellant accelerator on the back of them. And these things move at insane speeds, covering thousands of miles in minutes. And so the idea here is the Chinese government lifts these things up into the high atmosphere with a balloon, launches them, drops them, they gain speed, and then they move parallel to the ground and hit their target. And why this is kind of frightening is because this is exactly what we saw in that previous video. We saw the trajectory coming down and then moving parallel to the ground. So it looks like they're testing weapons. Now, what is a hypersonic weapon, and why is that so important? Well, a hypersonic weapon is different than the conventional weapons because this thing is moving at hypersonic speeds. It's not a slow-moving intercontinental ballistic missile. This thing can get to its target quick. Not only that, because it's moving so low to the ground and has some control, again, these things look like miniature little planes. Because it has control, it can actually get down close to the ground and evade, any anti-aircraft type batteries, or it can evade anti-missile launches because it's moving so quickly. So this is terrifying that even in this day and age when, we hope for peace, we hope there's not going to be any conflict in the world, China is actually working hard at developing this new technology. And not only that, apparently the US and Russia is working towards these hypersonic weapons as well. So this is some terrifying stuff. I don't think it's a UFO. I think it is this hypersonic weaponry. And it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so the way these work is it gets launched on a rocket. This is typically how they're supposed to work after these balloon-type tests. It goes up, and then it comes down. And there's no actual explosive payload like you would get from a conventional weapon, no chemical or nuclear, any kind of anything, because it's just a very super heavy object. And when it hits, it's all kinetic energy. It's like a big, hard boom, almost like a meteor, kind of flying down from space and hitting something. You don't need nukes when you can just deliver a huge chunk of weight into one particular spot. It kind of ends up looking ugly there. So this is kind of the new, let's call it hotness in warfare here. You don't need nukes anymore because this can do probably more damage if you have, a heavy enough object kind of falling from the sky there. So stuff to look out for, and I think you're right there, Frank. That's a hot take from Frank on kind of figuring out what this UFO is, because it comes from up above and then down lower. So it's definitely not a missile launch because it would go the other direction. And I think Frank's onto something here. So they're testing this stuff, guys. What do you think? How do you feel about them testing things on how to kill as many Americans as possible, or whoever? I just put that in there because we speak English. So what do you think? I think this stuff's pretty scary. Because again, that the level of technology is not necessary for the little type of country that can't do nukes. Well, you don't need them anymore. Here we are talking about just a heavy thing dropping from the sky, and that could do a ton of damage. Michael says that looks like the SpaceX launch, similar to California. Yeah, it did, right? Except the direction it was heading. That was the only thing that was a little bit different. But it did look like the same type of like gas pressure that was kind of pushing at some kind of object, whether up or down. This one down, but yeah, there we go. And then okay, play the video again. You got it. Let's play that video one more time. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next one real quick. But what do you guys think about this? Is this a correct take on what Frank picked out here? Does it look like it's a UFO, or does it look like, how do I get this back? Here we go.
Yeah, to me anyway, that big white trail is, this thing is moving so fast that it's actually passing the sound barrier multiple times, and that energy is actually creating those cloud droplets in its wake. So it's not, I don't think it's rocket exhaust. I think it's just the energy is causing this cloud to form behind it in the shape of a trail. I believe that happens with all kind of supersonic and hypersonic stuff. When it goes through the atmosphere, if there's moisture, it kind of does something and collects it all, and you get that trail behind it. Either way, though, this is horrifying. These things move so quick. You drop them. Imagine if these are in orbit. That's the real terrifying thing. You drop this thing, it flies to the target. You have no time to react. You can't do anything, and boom, down. It's a horrifying thing to think about.
Yeah, it's definitely war is not a happy place, and hopefully we don't have to deal with this type of stuff anytime soon. Michael says EMP attack weapon. As far as I'm aware, that's nukes. But yeah, it could be different technologies at this point. But it's possible. It's definitely possible. So there you go. It looks like it's coming from up above and kind of traveling downward. So there's a good analysis there, Frank. I think you picked out exactly what this probably is. All right, what do you guys think? And we're going to do the next article here, but what do you think about this one? Give us a call if you want to be part of the show, 702-957-1037. Click on the Discord link, and we'll put you on. You can talk to Frank and Mike. We'd love it. What's the next one there, Frank?
Okay, it's Halloween. We just did a show on the Ouija board, which I'm still terrified of. I still have my lights on in my room. They're never going off again, quite frankly. But it's Halloween, so let's look at a ghost video. This one was going around the internet a couple weeks back, but I thought it'd be pretty interesting to pull up now. So the Gongoi ghost video goes viral in Thailand. Let's pull that up and watch the video.
All right. So it looks like in the picture here, it kind of looks like in the cornfield there's a something that looks like the girl from The Ring. But let's watch the actual video. All right. Here we go. Oh yeah, so there's somebody with a light. What the heck? And in the cornfield, it looks like somebody is the little girl from The Ring, basically, like a white gown, long black hair, and it appears to be hopping on one leg. I'm gonna play this again, but it looks like they're either driving up with headlights or somebody with like a big floodlight. And this thing is, what the heck is that? That's pretty frightening.
Yeah, so in Thailand, the Gongoi is a mythical child-sized spirit that lives in the woods. It is said to appear as roughly humanoid with a single central leg on which it hops around. It has long dark hair and earns its name from its tendency to scream Gongoi, Gongoi. And tell me that's not what you're seeing in the video.
That seems pretty accurate description there. Do we know what Gongoi means? Does anybody out there know? I have no idea. Was it in the article there, Frank?
It wasn't in the article, but we got Google. I'll translate it. Keep talking for a second.
Okay. So here we go. This Halloween time. Is this it looks a little bit almost like puppet on a stick, kinda, you think? Like it's got a little bit of like it's definitely got a scary vibe to it, but it's moving almost unnaturally, let's say. Not like something with actual weight would, more like something would be pushed along on a string or something like that. If you guys are checking the video out, what do you think? Does this look legit? It definitely looks scary to me. It almost looks like it bends back and looks into the cornfield and then continues hopping away. Actually, I don't know if that's corn. I don't know the flora and fauna of the area we're talking about here, but it definitely is frightening there. Fake or not?
Gongoi means, this is terrifying. This is very spooky. It means calligraphy. So there you go.
What? Okay. Calligraphy. Yeah, that's okay. So this goes viral. This is a ghost story. This is where is this? Thailand? Yeah, Thailand. Thailand. There we go.
But yeah, that's the description of this thing. Is it has one single leg and it hops around. And this creature, this thing, whatever it is, it looks like it's hopping away.
It does. It does. What do you think, guys? Fake? Real? I think it's definitely something moving there, but I think it could be faked. This could be faked. Somehow, some way, this could be faked. Something, something above, or something inside the cornfield there, kind of hopping it along, or it's hard to say, but it is a little bit frightening with the gown and the dark hair. It definitely looks like the girl from The Ring, if you guys know that movie. Yeah, so there you go. If you want to comment and you know what to do, 702-957-1037. You can tell us what you think about Gongoi, which apparently means calligraphy in Thai. Thanks, Frank. All right, one more. We're gonna do one more, and then we'll jump into Atlantis, guys. Here we go. So this one is. Has anybody heard of parkour? I'm sure. I'm old, and so I'm saying this like it's some kind of alien word here, but apparently all the kids are doing it, and not just all the kids, but here we go. Boston Dynamics has a robot, an Atlas robot that can do parkour. So pretty interesting. Let's play the video real quick, and you can see this thing jumping around, running up walls, hopefully. All right, there we go. So the robot runs up, hops over a log. Oh snap! Goes right foot about a foot and a half up, left foot another foot and a half or so up, and another right foot jump. Holy smokes! And then keeps on running. Yeah, that's insane. That is crazy. This is This is what Elon Musk keeps talking about. This is the future. This is Skynet, guys. If this thing can be any sort of autonomous and be able to do that with any sort of speed, this is frightening. I'm going to play that one more time without the sound, but keep it rolling. What do you think? That's pretty terrifying, eh, Frank?
So 5 years ago, this thing couldn't walk. It would fall over. Then about 2-3 years ago, it could open a door and it could stand up again. Now it's jumping over logs and jumping up big boxes. I have to think that 10 years from now, this thing's going to be, arresting protesters and taking away my gold from me and taking away my firearms and things like that, because that's what this thing is designed for. There's a reason it has a human shape. This is going to be on the streets. It's going to be out to get you. And I know that sounds tinfoil hat, but what other reason do they have to build something like this? They are building this as some kind of Terminator robot. That's what it is. Doesn't have to have a gun. It could have pepper spray, and it's going to do the same damn thing. They're going to send this in to do jobs that people don't want to do. And what are they? They're dealing with protests, dealing with riots, maybe some mining, but I don't think so. You can just pay some poor person to do it, so why bother?
Yeah, definitely. The thing that's a little bit scary about this, or let's say a lot bit scary, is recently when Elon Musk saw this, I bring him up again because he said it's impressive now, but imagine very soon when it's going to move so quickly, you're not going to be able to see the thing without a strobe light. That was a remark made by Elon Musk about the Boston dynamics, and yeah. So how does that make you feel, Frank?
Point. Yeah, there's no limitations, right? We are limited by our biology. Sure, we can run quick, but this thing will do the 100-meter sprint faster than any human at some point, because it's a machine. They just iterate, and build it better. Not only that, it's stronger than a human. They build one for strength, they build one for speed, they build one for accuracy, and then 50 years from now, maybe they just combine all those things together, and then we're in trouble.
It's frightening. Michael says RoboCop. RoboCop, yes. That's exactly what it is. First they're going to be, just like Frank said, kind of beating down protesters, but after that, this becomes a weapon of war. This becomes something to silence the masses if necessary. It becomes Terminator. It becomes Skynet. It's pretty scary. Scary if you ask me. Tim says, send it to Mars. What's up, Tim? I agree. Send it to Mars. Let's get that thing up there instead of that little rover that gets stuck and covered by dust. Or maybe it can help the rover. It can dust it off. That'd be great. Yeah, that's what Tim says, to dig out the rover. And Kelly says, what's up, Kelly? He says, or they can use it for deep space research. That's true. That could be. That's like the Greys, right? They send us their versions of these that are autonomous and smart, and hopefully they can't move like that, like so fast you need a strobe light. Dave says Soldiers of Tomorrow, and Tim says it's in the RoboHop stage. Oh, okay. We're not RoboCop, it's RoboHop. That's a pretty good one. And Dave says if we could send robots after ISIS, isn't that better than our boys dying? Yeah, that's for sure. That is for sure. I think that the thing is that we have to have faith in the government. We have to have faith in whoever's running these things that they're actually doing it for the right reasons and for the right purpose. So are these to defend freedom and individual liberty, or are these a tool to help take it away? I think that's probably the most terrifying aspect here, is it's starting to be able to do amazing things that humans can do, and pretty soon it's going to be able to jump a lot higher, a lot farther, move a lot faster, and all those other things. So imagine when they actually learn to shoot. There will be no aim. It will be like snap aim. It'd be like fighting an aimbot in one of those first-person shooters. If you ever played against cheaters out there, you know what I'm talking about. That's what it'll be like. They'll put a bullet in your eye before you can even notice the thing. So I think that's the terrifying part there, to me anyway. And then Michael says it's our space ambassador for the aliens. Well, there you go. Maybe we'll need him. We'll have to fight back, and these will be our weapons of war. David, what's up, David? Thanks for showing up. He says plausible deniability as to who is actually working for. Oh, that's a good call there, huh? Definitely. And Dave says that's the misuse we have to worry about. Yeah, exactly. Everything. It's technology is one thing, but as you see on Facebook and Twitter and all these other things, it's just misuse. They're already doing it. The private sector has been doing it. They're going to continue to do it, and of course the government. I mean, they're working together against us. They should be working together to protect us and to keep us safe. And that's their line anyway. What do you think about that, Frank? The plausible deniability on who it's working for. You can. This is false flag heaven right here, right?
Absolutely. So they'll send this thing in to take care of ISIS, sure. And then they'll send it in to take care of Waco, Texas, and we all know what happened there. And when people complain, they'll say, oh, someone hacked it. It wasn't our fault, someone hacked it. And that'll be the end of the story. And then they'll do it again, and they'll say, oh, someone hacked it. Or it was Russia that did it. Russia hacked it, So these narratives are already out there, and I'm sure they will be used for this kind of thing in the future.
Yeah, definitely. What do you guys think? Scary stuff, right? If you want to comment on the robot before we move on to Atlantis, 702-957-1037. Click on the Discord link right there on the stream, and we'll put you on. You can tell us what you think. To me, it's terrifying, because this is like close your eyes and imagine. It's dark outside. There's thunder and lightning. You turn your light one way quickly, and you see this thing. You don't know whose side it's on. You don't know what it's doing there. But there it is. You can't really talk to it because it's some camera. It doesn't speak back like a person would. Tell me that's not terrifying. What do you do? I'm running, but you can't get away. just frightening.
I think you'd have to capture one and then send it back in time to prevent them from being created in the first place, right?
I think that's probably the way to do it. Oh, possibly. All right, what do you guys think? Here we go. We're gonna move on. We're gonna do Atlantis now. We should have a jingle there, huh, Frank? To start the actual topic for the night when we're done with the news. Maybe come up some kind of jingle and hit the button in. It'll play. We'll do that for next time. We'll get something.
We'll think about that.
Yeah, all right. Sure. Okay, but for now we're gonna do Atlantis. We're talking about Atlantis. Let's do it. What do we got, Frank? Where does the story start?
Yeah, let's go into this. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go through the real history of Atlantis. Then we're going to take a kind of a left turn and go through the slightly crazier history and evidence for Atlantis. And then we're just going to run into the woods naked and go for the real crazy stuff. So that's how the show's going, and should be entertaining. I hope so. So the first part may be a bit dry, but I personally find it fascinating. This is one of these things where you get to dig back in the history, the real history, and look at this stuff and judge it for yourself, because it's all written down. People have analyzed it over and over again, and there is some real documentation to prove this stuff exists or doesn't exist, depending on how you think. But it's always good to go back into the history and see this. It's not an invention of the internet 10 years ago. Some kid on Twitter didn't make it up 2 days ago. Or, for the ghost video, for example, there's no kid here with a string pretending to be something. This is real history. So I love looking at this stuff. Let's get into it. And again, there's a million different interpretations about Atlantis and all this kind of stuff. Like Isaac Newton and Francis Bacon, they all had their theories, and we have theories nowadays. We had theories in the past. Where is Atlantis? What does it look like? Was it even real in the first place? But let's go back, way back, and it all starts with Plato. So Plato was an Athenian philosopher and one of the most important figures in the ancient Greek world. And the entire history of Western thought. So he wrote a bunch of these dialogues, and that's what he's most famous for, these dialogues, where he kind of conveyed and expanded upon some of his ideas from his teacher, who was Socrates. Again, that's the guy we know him. And he founded an academy, which was almost like a university, and he had one very famous student, Aristotle. So these are big names. We still remember them to this day, which is probably 3,000 years in the past now. These guys were very important. So with the exception of, a couple of letters that people have attributed to him, all of Plato's surviving writings are in dialogue form. So kind of like little stories, little adventures. And some people say they're not true. They're all allegory. Some people that say that the characters mentioned in these dialogues are real and they actually existed. But it's still kind of up for debate whether or not that's true. So he's 36 of these dialogues, and they're really good. So one of them, I don't know if you've ever read this, but The Republic by Plato. It's really good, and I think it still holds a lot of water today. Something that it's talking about rule and how rulers need emotion and reason and desire. They have to balance that. And you also have to balance the hierarchy between rulers and auxiliaries and citizens. So it really does have relevance to what we're seeing today and how a wise ruler should control society. So this Republic dialogue from Plato. But that's not what we're talking about today. So scroll down here. Where are we? Timaeus. And so Timaeus is one of Plato's dialogues, mostly in the form of a long monologue given by the title of the character Timaeus, who's in this dialogue. The work puts forth the speculation on the nature of the physical world and human beings and is followed by the dialogue Critias. Now, Critias is one of the later dialogues where Plato recounts the story of the mighty island kingdom of Atlantis and its attempt to conquer Athens, which failed due to the ordered society of the Athenians. Critias is the second of a projected trilogy of dialogues, and this is important later. He never got to finish writing these, so the conclusion, as it were, kind of cut off. Now, this is where Atlantis comes from. This is the very root of it, is these two dialogues, the Timaeus and the Critias. That's how we know about Atlantis. That's why we're even looking for Atlantis to this day, 3,000 years later. These two dialogues, so these two fictional or non-fictional stories, depending on how you look at it. With me so far?
With you so far. So a couple comments here real quick, and then we'll continue on. Fred says, Frank's right. They will say it got hacked and lost its mind or malfunction, kill a bunch of people, talking about the Boston Dynamics there, the robot. Todd, what's up? Thanks for showing up. Tim says, E-Bomb's World has soundboards you could use for jingle sounds. We do have one of those already. It's not that particular one, but yes, we do. Thank you. Just a matter of plugging it in and choosing the right jingle. Juan says, hello. What's up, Juan? Thanks for showing up. And Kelly says, Atlantis and Hyperborea were real. And Todd says, Atlantis was a global civilization. This is right down your guys' alley. Yeah, so there we go. We're talking about Atlantis, global civilization, and I think we talked about Tom DeLonge and To the Stars and Disclosure, and Tom DeLonge said Atlantis was real as well. Did he not?
I think he did, yeah.
Okay.
But he said he maybe repeated some of the questionable stuff, but we'll get to that later.
Okay.
Anyway, Plato had these two dialogues. He talked about Atlantis. Now, where did he get this information from? This is even more fascinating. So Plato was around 500 BC, and Atlantis, the projected date of that was 12,000, 13,000 BC. So how did Plato know about Atlantis when Atlantis was destroyed, apparently, way, way earlier in 12,000 BC? Well, apparently, Plato had this ancestor, Solon. So Solon was an Athenian statesman, lawmaker, and poet. He is remembered particularly for his efforts to legislate against political, economic, and moral decline in Athens. His reforms are credited with having laid the foundations for Athenian democracy. So this big thinker, way back when, Solon, and he was an ancestor of Plato. So his family is, he's related to him. And after he had finished making these reforms, because he didn't want to stick around, he wanted to leave to make sure they couldn't be repealed, essentially. So after he finished with these reforms in the Athens, he traveled abroad for 10 years, and his first stop was in Egypt. Now, it seems to me that Egypt back in that time was like, I don't know, like Tijuana right now, right? Like when you get kicked out of the house, or when you want to go have a party, or when you want to go do something, you head over to Egypt. That seems to be the way it is now. And even way back when in the Ghost Story video, I don't know if you remember, but the Ghost Story episode we did, you know, all the Greeks were going down to Egypt and seeing ghosts and stuff down there. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Anyway, so he went down to Egypt, and he talked with two Egyptian priests, and I'm going to butcher their names, but Sonkis, essentially, is one of them. So this old Egyptian priest tells Solon, who's, again, Plato's ancestor, that 9,000 years earlier, Athens had been in conflict with a great power of Atlantis, which was then destroyed in a catastrophe. Following that so far.
I'm with you. Catastrophe. Atlantis. That's why we no longer have it. Catastrophe.
Yeah, so basically the way this goes is an Egyptian priest related the story to Solon, and Solon had letters or maybe an oral tradition that was passed down to Plato, and Plato wrote about it. Now, there's some debate whether, again, he made all this stuff up, he was just making this stuff up to prove a point, or if it was actually real. But for this, we're going to take the stance that Plato, what he was writing about, was actually real. So what does he say? What's so important about Atlantis? Well, once upon a time, there was a mighty power based on an island in the Atlantic Ocean. This empire was called Atlantis, and it ruled over several other islands in parts of the continents of Africa and Europe. Atlantis was arranged in concentric rings of alternating water and land. The soil was rich, the engineers technically accomplished, and the architecture extravagant, with baths, harbors, and barracks. The central plain outside the city had canals and a magnificent irrigation system. So I think we have some pictures. I don't know if you're showing them, but this is what it should have looked like. Now, Atlantis had kings and a civil administration, as well as an organized military. The rituals matched Athens for bull baiting, sacrifice, and prayer. So they were equal in technology, if not more so advanced than Athens, which was kind of the center of civilization at the time. But then Atlantis waged an unprovoked imperialistic war on the remainder of Asia and Europe. When Atlantis attacked, Athens showed its excellence as a leader of the Greeks and kind of fought them off. So they defeated the Atlanteans who were invading, and after the battle, there were violent earthquakes and floods, and Atlantis sank into the sea, and all the Athenian warriors were swallowed up by the earth. So that's what Plato had to say about Atlantis. And just that little bit is kind of persisting to this day. We still think about it. Think about that. This guy, 3,000 years ago, writes that. 3,000 years later, we're still obsessed with trying to find this spot, trying to find these people, trying to prove if they're real or not. It's pretty interesting. So
it's pretty amazing.
He moves on to describe. Go ahead.
It's pretty amazing. I think if it was, some lightweight writer, we wouldn't be talking about it. But we're looking at Plato here. He's one of the great minds of all time, and whether he writes fiction or he writes actual truth, it still holds a ton of weight today. So I think that's probably a big reason why we're even talking about this, because it was some other ass clown name, say Michael Strange, that wrote this 3,000 years ago. We this would be nothing. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
He then moves on to describe the origins of Atlantis. So he said that Atlantis was allotted to the god Poseidon. Now, Poseidon, Neptune, is the god of the sea in the Greek and Roman traditions. So Poseidon fell in love with a mortal girl named Cleito, and she bore him a number of children, the first of which was named Atlas, who inherited the kingdom and passed it on to his firstborn for many generations. Now, it's interesting here that Cleito was a toxinus, which is essentially children of the soil, which means they belong to the land eternally. So the mud people, essentially. I know that's a slur in certain cultures, but these people actually came from the earth. And that kind of differentiates them here from the gods. So you had these godlike characters, and you had these mud people and their offspring, which were Atlas and the other kings of Atlantis. So he goes on to, Plato goes on to describe great detail of what Atlantis and the temple. There was a temple in the very center with Poseidon and Cleito on the island, and he refers to the legendary metal orichalcum. He goes on about the nature of Atlantis. So for many generations, as long as this divine nature lasted in them, they were obedient to the laws and well-affectioned towards the gods, whose seed they were, for they possessed true and in every way great spirits, uniting gentleness with wisdom in the various chances of life, and in their intercourse with one another. They despised everything but virtue, caring little for their present state of life, and thinking lightly of the possession of gold and other property, which seemed only to burden them. Never were they intoxicated by luxury, nor did wealth deprive them of their self-control. They were sober, saw clearly, so they were a great people, essentially. So they were all in control of themselves, they had no vices, they were virtuous, and they were great people. As time went on, they became corrupt, however. So when the divine portion, and they're referring to, I suppose, the genetics of this, as the divine portion of these people began to fade away and became too diluted too often by the mortal admixture, so mixing with these mud people, human nature got the upper hand. Then they, being unable to bear their fortune, behaved unseemly, and to him had an eye to see grew visibly debased, for they were losing the fairest of their precious gifts. But to those had, basically, I'll summarize this, when they were more godlike, when their offspring were more mixed with the gods, they were behaving good and gentle and kind. But as more mud people began to creep in, this sounds horrible, but this is from Plato, they started embracing their vices more often. So then the dialogue, Critias says that Zeus, the god of gods, seeing the corruption of the Atlanteans, determined to chastise them. Zeus begins to speak, and that's where it ends. So that's the end of the dialogue, and that's all we know about Atlantis. But apparently it was destroyed. So Zeus destroyed it, according to some. Is making sense so far?
Yeah, so it kind of mirrors a little bit Sodom and Gomorrah from the Bible. We have the people there that are, partying a little too hard, let's say, doing all the terrible things that people should not do to each other. And there's some god, some deity that strikes it down and literally turns it into molten fire in the case of Sodom and Gomorrah. But I think in this case we're talking about earthquakes, floods, and all of the accompanying madness that comes with all those things. So very, very interesting with the ancient parallels on the stories here. We're talking about Atlantis from how many thousands of years ago? Is this? Do we have an estimate there, Frank? Is it 10 or 15 or 20,000?
12,000 years ago. 12,000 to 14,000 years ago, I believe, is when they say it was destroyed.
Okay, and so Sodom and Gomorrah is going to be somewhere in the 3,000 to 5,000 range, something like that. But definitely parallels that kind of creep through history here. Even though we're talking about different cultures and different things, parallels are interesting. Yeah, there you go. What do you guys think? So we're talking about Atlantis tonight. So we're just kind of going into where the story of Atlantis came from, Plato, and exactly what we know about it based on his writings. So obviously from that point forward, there's tons of conjecture, there's tons of hyperbole, there's tons of all the fun stuff to talk about, but you have to start somewhere. And so we're going to start with the actual history here, where this information came from, and the actual documents, and that's what we're doing. So we're going to get to some wacky stuff here in a little bit with other stuff. But okay, there we go. I think we're caught up.
Yeah, exactly. So the true source of all this information, everything you hear about Atlantis, comes from Plato. So Plato's ancestor was told by this Egyptian priest. Plato wrote about it in his dialogues. Atlantis was this advanced civilization started by Poseidon, run by his half-god children, and was later destroyed in a cataclysm. So that's the official history. And as you said, everything since then is kind of conjecture and people adding to it, truthfully or not. And we'll get into that. But let's look at some of the evidence, right? So we had this great civilization. Surely it left markers. Surely it left proof somewhere. They're digging up stuff all over the place all day long. Archaeologists finding things from way back when. Surely there's some kind of proof that this great civilization existed. And surely they found the location of this civilization. Well, some people think that, yes, they have. But this is where we kind of take a step off the path of the mainstream, because people think that Plato wrote about Atlantis to personify an ideal society, like a virtuous, happy, ideal society, where everyone followed the rules and the ruling structure and the people underneath it all worked together quite well. And more importantly, they think that what happened to Atlantis, it being destroyed, was kind of an allegory for what happens if an ideal society becomes corrupt. So that's the mainstream explanation, is that Atlantis wasn't really real. This whole thing was an allegory for what would happen if society became corrupt. But some people think it is real, and that's us, of course. So let's look at the evidence.
Let the debate begin. Real or not, guys? What do you think? Before we cut into this, who out there thinks Atlantis is real, and who else out there thinks it is not? It was just some kind of allegory talking about when a just society falls and the vices that bring it down. What do you think? What do you think? What are we talking about? So if you want to be on the show and talk about this, we'd love to hear it. 702-957-1037, or just jump on Discord there. One more time, 702-957-1037. We've had a couple good callers recently, and a couple good callers previous to that. So we're waiting for it. We appreciate your guys' input, and again, why we do this, why we have the open lines, why we have Discord. We want to be transparent to you. Unlike the government, we want to be transparent and have you be able to question us and add input to what we're doing here. So you know what to do if you want to be part of the show. We're reading comments, as you know, but we prefer the calls. A couple comments, and we'll continue on with Atlantis here. So Kelly says that parallels with ancient Sumerian text as well, and the ancient stories are the same but with different names. And Todd says it was real. He thinks Atlantis is real. All right, what about the rest of you guys? Real or not real? I'll create a poll. Here we go. While Frank's going, I'm gonna add a question here. Atlantis, real or not? So go ahead and vote, and we'll have a impromptu yes or no here. But okay, go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, so I think the first proof of this would be to find a location. Now, people think this thing is a sunken island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Some people think it's in America. Some people think it's in Greenland. Some people think, it's lost to time entirely. But recently, going around the internet, there's this idea that the recat structure, which we'll play a video about in a second, is the location of the lost city of Atlantis, because it fulfills some of the geological kind of criteria that Plato described. This structure has 3 concentric rings where water and ocean and lake could be in between them. It has mountains to the north. It has springs in the middle, freshwater springs. Again, all things that Plato described. So let's play that video about the recat structure in case you're not familiar with what we're talking about.
Okay, which one is that?
Ooh, that's the European Space Agency recat structure video.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Here we go. Action.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Brennan-Wessels, and welcome back to Earth from Space on the European Space Agency Web TV. A giant geological wonder in the Sahara Desert of Mauritania is pictured in this satellite image. Measuring 40 kilometers in diameter, the circular Richat structure is one of the geological features that is easier to observe from space than from down on the ground, and has been a familiar landmark to astronauts since the earliest missions. Once thought to be the result of a meteor impact, researchers now believe it was caused by a large dome of molten rock uplifting, and once at the surface, being shaped by wind and water into what we see today. Concentric bands of resistant quartzite rocks form ridges, with valleys of less resistant rock between them.
That's pretty amazing.
This image was acquired on November 23rd of 2010 by the Advanced Visible and Near-Infrared Radiometer on Japan's ALO satellite. The dark area on the left is part of the Adrar Plateau of sedimentary rock, standing some 200 meters above the surrounding desert sands. A large area covered by sand dunes can be seen in the lower right part of the image, and sand is encroaching on the structure's southern side. Zooming in on the southern side of the bullseye, we can see individual trees and bushes appear as tiny dots. These follow a river-like structure that appears to have been dry when this image was acquired, a few weeks after the rainy season. Some areas in the south and east of the Richat appear to be covered by temporary lakes, which are dry for most of the year.
Okay, so what we're looking at, it's a satellite image. I'm going to play this again as I describe it here. And it definitely has that Atlantis vibe to it. It has the rings. They look like they're larger from the outside. It looks like they were probably filled with water at some point. And it definitely has that rings straight out of Plato, concentric circles. That's the best way to describe it. It's compelling, let's say. If you don't believe that Atlantis exists, good on you. We got a 3-to-1 right now. Or no, changing. It was 3-to-1. Hell yeah, Atlantis is real. But if you don't think it exists, take a look at this structure here. It's definitely concentric circles. It's definitely This is a real place on Earth right now, and it's ancient, and it looks like it's been overrun with water, and it's huge. So, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? What do you think,
Yeah,
Frank?
so this thing, it matches Plato's description. It has these concentric circles, the freshwater spring in the middle. It's got the mountains to the north. It has the sea axis. That lady in the video there mentioned like a route that water takes to the sea. So at one time, there was probably a better route to the sea through that drain-off channel. And yeah, it looks and it kind of fits the artist's rendition of Atlantis. So there's a probable location for Solon's descriptions of what this place looks like. So again, that kind of suggests that it could be real, that it's not an island or sunken in the ocean, that it's actually in Africa. And people said it was an island because it had this massive, massive, massive lake around it, naturally forming. So it looked like an island, but it wasn't necessarily not. It was an inland island, to put it that way. Interesting to me, compelling. There's a lot about the stuff. There's a documentary that's floating around at visitingatlantis.com. You can go to that, or there's what's that guy's name? Jimmy from Bright Insight. You can go watch his video on it. We'll put the links in probably the show notes for it. There's a lot of good evidence, though, that this is the actual location for Atlantis. Now, so we know that Plato described it. We know that we have a probable location. But what about its destruction? Because this thing was sunken beneath the ocean, or so they say. So the Egyptian priest told Solon that it was destroyed 9,000 years earlier, and taking into account when Solon was alive, and when Plato wrote about it later on, that puts the destruction of this thing between 12,000 and 13,000 years into the past. So interestingly enough, and this is going into some of Graham Hancock's work, people speculate now that there was a cataclysm 12,000 years ago, and this cataclysm could have been responsible for destroying or burying or sinking Atlantis somehow. So this comes from kind of ice core samples and other climate data, radiocarbon dating, and isotope analysis. But the long and the short of it is that between 12 and 15,000 years ago, there were some very strange climate things going on. Now, at that time, the world was at the tail end of an ice age, so North America was completely covered in an ice cap. And then suddenly, we had massive changes in temperatures and massive changes in sea level. So I think we have an image here of this younger Dryas, is what they call it. This is the graph here. But basically, on the left-hand side, we have temperature, and then on the bottom, we have thousands of years before the present. And you can see this huge spike in temperature right around the time Atlantis was said to be destroyed, so 12,000 years ago. So we're looking at very low temperatures, then they rise back up very quickly, a change of more than 10 degrees, then they go back down again, and then they shoot back up. So interesting, at this time we had massive, massive, massive climate change right around when this Egyptian priest said that Atlantis was destroyed. So what do you think about that?
I think it lines up pretty well. I think when you take some of this ice core samples and look at the data, it's hard to refute some of the data, right? You get climate change, actual climate change over tens of thousands of years, and there it is, right between the spot where it looked like it would be, and the younger Dryas. I think that's pretty good stuff. I think this is, obviously not science that proves anything as far as Atlantis is concerned, but like Frank said a couple shows ago, that between 2 points there's a straight line, but when you have more and more data points and we're still drawing straight lines, it's hard to say. It's then you start getting, what would you call it? Data, evidence. Yeah, interesting stuff.
So this goes in line with this idea of a great flood. The biblical flood and the flood described in other cultures is that around this time, civilization was wiped out. And they think that an asteroid or a comet hit this ice cap that was over over North America. And that caused these changes in temperatures. That caused all this flooding. Is that something actually impacted the North American ice cap. And that released steam and clouds into the air, so that lowered the temperature. And then it also caused flooding and all this kind of stuff. So that fits in line with what we see in the graph here. And, you know, there's other data points to kind of back this thing up, like nanodiamonds and radioactive material and all sorts of strange isotopes around that time locked into these ice cores. But there does seem to be some good evidence that around that time, something happened. And around that time, Atlantis was also destroyed, if you take the Egyptian priest's word for it. But I think we got another graph for kind of pulse. So this is just a graph of global sea level in years before present. And again, around that time, you got this meltwater pulse 1A and meltwater pulse 1B. So these are rapid rises in sea level over the course of a very short time. So more evidence that, to me anyway, that there was some kind of flooding around this time. And this, again, fits in line with the idea that, well, Atlantis was buried or sunken, possibly due to this flooding. Interesting stuff overall, I think. And, you know, you can look up Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock, and they kind of talk about this from time to time. But pretty interesting that this whole thing lines up with the time that Atlantis was supposedly destroyed.
Yeah, so not just a sea level rise, or this is actually a rise, yeah, but also you know, we got stories from the past. We've talked about previously in some of the ghost stories we talked about, and it's tough to discount history. It's tough to discount some of the stories that have been floating in the zeitgeist for thousands of years, because it's to kind of deny who we are as people. If we deny some of our best storytellers, even a little bit of a scientific accounting, it's my dog, then I think we're doing ourselves a disservice as a species, as people here. So you know, I think we have to give it a good look and look at the evidence and not be so closed-minded. You know, again, that's why we do this show. That's why we talk about these things, and here we are. So a couple comments here, and then we'll keep on trucking on Atlantis. Okay, so Adam says, okay, hold on, let's back up. Yes, Fred says, I saw that very possible everything fits. Talking about a previous comment. Adam says it looks like a mine, and says it might be a diamond mine if this is Africa. Yeah, it is in Africa. That's where that land structure was. Kelly says, yeah, Jimmy does a good video, and only mines back in history would have been a gold mine, says Kelly. And most gold mines were in South Africa, so I don't think that was a mine. And then Adam says, oh, go to Google and Google NASA, nuke the moon, and you'll find the story that they doctored up, but it's there on Google, off topic. Okay, cool. Bring that Tuesday. We'll talk about that one. So on Tuesday, if you guys are not familiar, we do a open topic show. So if you guys have some stuff you want us to discuss and talk about, look at some pictures and maybe play some video, we will do that, and that's Tuesday. So if you have anything you want to see like that right there, Google and NASA nuking the moon. We'll talk about that on Tuesday, among other cool things. Got a new poll up. Did the Great Flood sink Atlantis? We got 75% right now say yes, it is very possible, and 25% says no, it was something else. So there we go. We got that happening, Frank. We got a poll happening here. The other one was almost unanimous. People believe that Atlantis was a real place. So there we go. Keep on.
Yeah. So we got a good historical account of this from Plato. We got a probable location, and we have a probable explanation for how this thing ended, how it was destroyed or sunken beneath the waves, as Plato says. So, you know, putting all that together, it could be real, right? It could be a real place. Now, that's it for the sanity. Let's get into the crazy stuff now. So, we know it could be real. We have a possible place for it. We have a possible explanation for its destruction. But did all of these Atlanteans perish? Did they all die in that flood? And some would say no. So, apparently, Egypt was a colony of Atlantis. Now, this is what some people think, even though the sources are kind of crazy. So, what proofs do we have that Egyptians were actually a colony of Atlantis, that Atlanteans settled Egypt or escaped there at some point? Well, they claim descent from the 12 great gods, which could be interpreted as meaning the 12 gods of Atlantis, so Poseidon, Cleito, and their 10 sons, of which Atlas was one. Now, according to the Bible, the Egyptians were descendants of Ham, sons of Noah, who escaped the deluge, so the Great Flood. Another point. The Egyptians were the only people of antiquity who were well informed as to the history of Atlantis. Again, that priest told Solon and Solon told Plato. So they're the only people in history who knew about it. So there's kind of three possible explanations for why it could be linked. But what else? Are there any sources that link Atlantis and Egypt in writings or other things? No. It's the channeling people. Okay, so let's get into this part. There are people out there who claim to be able to channel dead Atlanteans. So channel is in summon up their spirits and communicate with them in order to spread their message. And that's where some of this information comes from. That's where some of the links between Atlantis and Egypt come from. So let's play the crazy channeler clip as an example of that.
All right, crazy channeler coming up. All right, so we got a guy sitting in a chair, eyes closed. He's waving his arms around slowly, ever so slowly.
Greetings. We are the Atlanteans. Send you much love as you awaken to your surrounding areas of consciousness. We Atlanteans live within all of you, because all of you have had moments within our history. Even if you're a time traveler or alien, you've all intervened or connected, I should say. Well, intervened, depending on how you say that. Connected to our society at one time or another. Everyone knows this. This galaxy is very Atlantean, where many other galaxies are pulled into this Earth, the knowledge of other galaxies seated on this planet, as you know, the best of it all, but not always, as you can tell.
Okay, I'm shutting this guy off. What do you guys think? So he's waving his arms around a little bit. He's got his eyes closed most of the time. He's kind of opens his eyes a little bit, and you heard the stuff he was saying. He was talking about I think all kinds of gibberish. Let's say, I don't know. What do you think about this guy, Frank? What do you guys think about this guy? Is this guy legitimate? Is this an actual channeler, or is this something that's contrived? Are we making stuff up now? It seemed a little suspicious to me, let's say.
Yeah, so this is the theme here, is that some of these people through history have channeled these dead Atlanteans, and they've spread their knowledge, they've spread their history, and they've told us, through these channelers, all this stuff about Atlantis. So, yeah, there's that. Now, I don't know if this guy is legitimate, but one person, a very similar type of channeler, who people think is legitimate, is Edgar Casey. Have you heard of him?
Yes, actually. He's an old channeler from the early 1900s, actually, I believe. And he's quite famous. He did a lot of channeling sessions for famous people, and let's say charity channeling, where he helped cure people by kind of seeing into their psyche and into their body through the channeling and like magnetic fields and some other things. So he is quite famous as far as channeling goes, and this type of thing. So Edgar Casey, C-A-Y-C-E. If you guys are familiar or not, you can look him up. And we're gonna play a video here. But that right on the money there, Frank. I've heard of this guy.
Yeah, essentially. So he was considered one of the most prolific prophets in modern history, often compared to Nostradamus. He was actually more prolific than Nostradamus, with 14,000 readings. He was also more accurate in his predictions, so people have gone back and checked them. Now, Casey mostly gives psychic readings for people that were in great difficulty or suffering. He never asked for money. He never took advantage. However, besides offering readings to people, he also prophesied about world events, past and future. So let's play the clip and introduce him.
Okay, this is Edgar Casey. Here we go, action.
3 years of his life, Edgar Casey would lie down on a couch, place his hands on his solar plexus, and fall into a self-induced trance. In this state, he traveled through space and time, foretelling wars, diagnosing illnesses, and in some of his most intriguing readings, rewriting history.
When we consider Edgar Casey's predictions, it's also interesting to look at some of the retrocognitive statements he made, looking back into history and making statements about things you wouldn't find in the history book.
The sleeping Casey seemed to know secrets about our past that only the most high-tech instruments and years of excavating could reveal. Long before the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947, Casey spoke of an ancient sect of Judaism, the Essenes, which experts believed was made up exclusively of men.
Edgar Casey spoke about the Essenes as a community that included men, women, and children.
Experts remained dubious, but in the 1950s, years after Casey's death, archaeologists uncovered skeletons of Essene women near the site of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
With geology, there are some interesting things as well. Casey suggested that at one time the Nile River flowed in the opposite direction and actually emptied directly into the Atlantic Ocean.
Amazingly, in the 1980s, satellite images from the space shuttle revealed unknown river valleys beneath the driest parts of the Sahara. More imaging and on-site exploration revealed that the Nile may indeed have once flowed through the Sahara and into the Atlantic.
In Edgar Casey's lifetime, much of what he said about lost civilizations, ancient worlds, was regarded as science fiction. It really wasn't until this century, and literally the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, that people have begun to look much harder and realistically at these readings as perhaps, well, maybe these aren't so far-fetched.
Probably the most astounding historical readings Casey gave had to do with the lost land of Atlantis.
There you go. So he was famous for doing some readings, and we've talked about the Akashic record before. This guy in particular said that he was able to tap into that. So the Akashic record it's knowledge. It's the knowledge of the universe that's static. It's like if science could actually come up with the answers to everything, let's say, and not just scientifically speaking, but spiritually speaking, all of this would be accounted for in the Akashic record. And so that's where Edgar Casey apparently got a lot of this reading from, and which has some actual what would you call it? A place in Atlantis, of course, and a place even beyond Atlantis. We're going to go into maybe Enki and Zachariah Sitchin and some of that stuff, but it's apparently all-encompassing knowledge throughout all of time about science, spirituality, about God, and everything. It's all there, apparently. So that's where Edgar Casey apparently got some of this. Sorry if I stole some thunder there, Frank, but that's what I know about this guy. Real interested in him. Did a lot of reading on him in years past. So you're triggering me here.
Yeah, we'll have to do an entire show on him, but for this episode in particular, it's his prediction, or his revelation, that there was an exodus of people from Atlantis to Egypt. So before this thing was destroyed, and during this time of cataclysm, of flooding, people left Atlantis and went to Egypt. So what do we have here? Casey revealed that before the legendary land disappeared under the waves, there was an exodus of many Atlanteans to ancient Egypt. He attributed the biblical Great Flood of Noah to be a result of the sinkings of the last huge remnants of Atlantis. He also revealed that many Atlanteans had managed to escape, had hoped to preserve a record of their civilization. Thus, they created two separate archives with all their history and accomplishments so they could preserve them. Casey said that the Atlanteans buried one of the archives under one of the Sphinx's paws. Now, we talked about that in the Giza Plateau episode, that it seems to be that there's a chamber under one of the Sphinx's paws. Now, recently, there's new research that shows that there is that chamber there. So, here's where we're at. All told, Plato wrote about Atlantis. He left this historical record that's fascinated us to this day. An Egyptian priest told Solon was Plato's ancestor, Plato wrote this. Now, there also appears to be evidence that Atlantis was real, this recat structure in the Sahara, and gods, half-gods, and mud people lived there. And it was destroyed, and this destruction kind of coincides with this huge climate change, rise of sea levels, massive swings in temperature up and down 12,000 years ago, and that verifies the Egyptian priest story of about 12,000 years ago. And finally, before Atlantis was destroyed, some people say, like Edgar Casey here, that some of these Atlanteans escaped to Egypt and took their technology and their teachings and kind of their culture with them.
And where did they take it?
I don't know. It looks like they took it to Egypt.
They took it to Egypt.
And I think we got some on that right now.
We do. Okay, so going to go over the... I put up a poll here. Was Atlantis a real place? We were pretty unanimous. Everybody thought it was a real place. And the next poll here is still active. Did the Great Flood sink Atlantis? We've got 83% say yes, it is very possible. We got 17% say no, it was something else. If you guys think it was something else and you want to give us a call, we'd love to hear about it. The number to call is 702-957-1037. Or you can click the Discord link right there in the stream, hop on, talk to Frank and Mike, and talk about Atlantis. We're talking about Atlantis, Edgar Cayce. We're talking about the Akashic Record, which Kelly's got a good comment here. He says anyone can tap into those records. We just have to relearn those things. It's lost knowledge. Great comment there. And yeah, we're going to get into the Emerald Tablets right now. So Atlantis sunk. Okay. But what happened is apparently the civilization fled to other parts of the world. Okay, and so it explains some of the ways that we have in different cultures. We have pyramids. Okay, so we have them in Egypt. Okay, that's one of the places they fled to. Apparently, they went to Egypt. That was one of the earliest powerful civilizations in world history, and it's apparently due to Atlantis and their technology and all the things they brought when Atlantis itself sunk. So there's one thing here. Gonna read a couple comments and then we'll get into the rest of this. So Kelly says, have you heard about found a sunken ship that had metal bars that was only talked about and found in Atlantis? No, I have not, and he linked it here. I'm gonna drop this for you, Frank, if you want to take a look at this. Thank you for the link there, Kelly. Giving it to Frank because I'm gonna be talking a bit here. And there we go. If you can check that out, Frank, pretty please. All right, so a couple more comments. So we're looking into that, Kelly. Thank you. Todd says, though the Egyptian god was Nigizita, son of Enki of the Anunnaki, and Thoth also wrote the Emerald Tablets. So, yeah. So we're about to talk about that right now. Okay. So comments. Okay, and then Kelly says, Thoth says he left his spaceship under the Sphinx. Okay, and then there you go. Terrell says, this is what you've been listening to? Well, wait, this is what you'd be listening to? SMH. Hey, Terrell, give us a call, man. We'd love to hear why you think this is bunk. 702-957-1037. We don't hide behind the internet, so if you'd like to call us and tell us why this stuff is ridiculous, we'd love to hear it. Phone number is right there. But we're talking about Plato, man. Plato is an ancient mind. So there you go. If you want to discount something that came out of Plato's texts, that's on you. I'm not going to easily discount something like that. Okay, so here we go. The Akashic Record. Atlantis sinks. They flee to different parts of the world, specifically Egypt. Now, we're going to talk about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Now, I know that Kelly and Todd have been all about this for quite a while, and it's interesting. Here we go. I'm going to read this real quick. So, the Emerald Tablets is considered to be one of the most antique and mystic works of wisdom. It is believed to have been written by Thoth, an Egyptian god of wisdom, the divine mediator and counselor, the inventor of writing, and the ruler of several Atlantean colonies. Okay, so with that there, it says that he was one of the ones that fled to Egypt from Atlantis when it sunk. And as a ruler of Atlantean colonies, he helped build Egypt from the ground up. So it was just a desert, and apparently he built the pyramids, or had a hand in helping build the pyramids. I'm sure Kelly, Todd, if you guys want to chime in on this, we're talking about your Emerald Tablets, so give us a call. You know what to do, 702-957-1037, or click the Discord, we'll put you on. Okay, so so the Emerald Tablet Thoth is a book of occult wisdom that Thoth had secreted away in the pyramid for the purpose of enlightenment of the future generations. It talks about the philosophy of one God, the concept of soul, the reality behind all creation, and unity and interconnectedness of everything in the universe. Okay, so pretty much the Force, right? We're talking about George Lucas and how the Force binds everything together. It seems like the Emerald Tablets might be part of that Akashic Record. So Okay, so here we go. So the description's available of the Emerald Tablet. I'll show it was comprised of 12 tablets made from an emerald green substance that was created by way of an alchemical transmutation. Because Thoth is one of the most famous alchemists, which is an ancient discipline, and what alchemists used to do is try and change base metals into gold. I'm sure you've if you know anything about alchemy, that's what it was all about in the old days. They were trying to turn lead into gold. So he's one of the most famous alchemists, the one that started all of that. And it is said that actually alchemists in history, they would actually put up texts from the Emerald Tablets up on their wall as kind of a inspiration. So there we go. Todd says it doesn't talk about God. He calls the greater of all. Okay. Oh, yeah. And then never said it was mental. Tablet for the dweller of Unal. Yep. And then Todd says he talks about the creator of all, not God. Right. Okay. So he calls it something else. But it's definitely knowledge. It's spiritual knowledge, and it's about all things. Okay. So what do you guys think? For those of you that know, are the Emerald Tablets part of the Akashic record, or is it completely something different? Because we got some similar instances here where it appears that they were hidden in Egypt. Okay, so I'll get into that in a sec here. Hold on, what do I got?
Just to jump in there, talking about alchemy, I've always found it interesting and fascinating that, 50, 100 years ago, they thought that elements were elements and they couldn't be transmuted from one form to the other. You could never turn lead to gold. You could never turn gold to lead, right? It was static. It was stale. And nowadays, well, we're turning uranium into plutonium, and we're mixing all these heavy elements together through radiation in nuclear reactors and bombs all the time. So this stuff is happening. We are changing elements from one form to the other. And when you think about this story with advanced technologies and Akashic records and the secrets of the universe and things like the Philosopher's Stone, if you interpret that as more advanced technology or more knowledge, you could easily see a situation where 2,000 years from now, just as we thought nowadays we can't turn one element into the other, and then we determine that, yes, we can in fact do that through radiation. Well, maybe 2,000 years, 3,000 years from now, we will be able to turn gold into lead and lead into gold through this kind of technology, through more learning, advancements of science. So thinking about it that way, it seems to me that, yeah, this is just high tech back in the day. That
we've lost. We can't get it back. Okay, so a little bit more on the Emerald Tablets here, and there's a deeper history with this. And again, if you guys, I know we got some guys in the chat here that are really knowledgeable about this. So if you want to give us a call, we got about 30 minutes left of the show, so we're gonna do some more of this. And if you want to call and tell us what's up and give some insight, we'd love it. 702-957-1037. Okay, so here we go. Now this is important here. So these Emerald Tablets were created by way of alchemical transmutation. Okay. They were completely resistant to all elements, acids, and corrosion, and hence imperishable. The material has a fixed atomic and cellular structure. No change ever takes place, and thus it goes against the material law of ionization. Okay, so these things are immortal, basically, immortal material. Okay, so now this is interesting. The tablets are engraved with characters of the Phoenician language. These characters are believed to communicate with the reader through attuned mental wavelengths, unveiling profound wisdom, promoting inner awakening, and developing a keen perception of the laws that regulate all life and creation. So that sounds pretty Akashic record style to me there. What do you think, Frank? What do you think? You buying this?
Yeah, so far I think it's just a kind of a backwards way of describing things that we have today, right? We have knowledge. They're talking about they were engraved in certain characters. Well, think about what maybe you're looking at right now. You're looking at a screen where the characters can change and they can shift and they can give you different knowledge depending on how you look at them. So isn't that just text on a screen? Simply. Seems like it could be.
Right, definitely. Got some more comments here. Adam says that perhaps it's the true Philosopher's Stone. possibly, and deeper than that. And then Thoth says it's different. The Emerald Tablets teach you how to meditate and tell you how to have an out-of-body experience so you can travel through the higher realms of consciousness. Yes, that's in here as well. And then Kelly says, deep beneath the rocks, I buried my spaceship, waiting the time when man might be free. Over the spaceship erected a marker, I, the form of a lion, yet like unto man. There, neath the image, rests yet my spaceship, forth to be brought when need shall arise. So that's there you go. That's the spaceship that's buried under the Giza Plateau, right? I think we talked about that previously. It's where Thoth left his spaceship, and he's gonna, when the day comes, is this the second coming of who knows what, of Atlantis? Maybe when Atlantis comes back. I don't know. Interesting stuff. So what do you guys think? Is this so far? Let's rewind, catch everybody up. We started with Plato. We started with Atlantis. Is it a real place? Is it not? Is it some kind of allegory to a just society? Is it an actual place that got sunk? That's where we're at, okay? Now, we've got, if it was an actual place that did get sunk or did get destroyed by earthquakes and what have you, the gods, the people that were there had to go somewhere, right? They had to go. They left. They went to Egypt. We've got some speculation that they went to Egypt. We've got some speculation that they went to South America and spread out around the world to escape the cataclysm in Atlantis. So here we are. We're talking about that. So Thoth was a principal in Atlantis. He's the guy that actually, one of them that got out and helped some of the civilizations come back from the ruin that they experienced when Atlantis went under. So yeah, I mean, there's more here. There's tons more. Here we go. So Thoth himself served to enlighten humans in that age that they were not the spawn of the Nephilim, the fallen angels of Lucifer. He revealed to them that although the fallen lords had greatly tampered with their mortal bodies through eons of genetic manipulation, humankind were still angels unaware. So that's from one of these texts. I'm not sure if it was directly from the Emerald Tablets themselves. Okay, so the Emerald Tablets, are they real? Does anybody have, if you Google it and actually look at Emerald Tablets of Thoth, Thoth, you'll find all kinds of really pretty pictures of these Emerald Tablets. Well, they don't actually exist, at least in the sense that you can take a picture of them and put them on the internet. That they've been hidden. Apparently, here we go. Thoth says under the paw of the Sphinx is where the spaceship has been hidden from Thoth himself, and apparently where the Emerald Tablets have gone. So it's got a ton of ancient knowledge, things that mankind isn't supposed to know, at least until we're ready to know it. And so that's where we're at. That's where we're at. Okay. All right. Give us a call, Todd. Yeah, give us a call, man. He says, whoever wrote that doesn't know what they're talking about. All right. So I got it from a bunch of sources here. And I think that's the problem when you're looking at this stuff is there's a ton of sources, right? And some of it's right, some of it's not. Some of it's mixed together. And all you can do is dig your way through and try and find out. Okay. So in ancient Atlantis, they say that Thoth actually had a different name. He went by Thoth Mus Zarud. And then after that, he was actually attributed in different ways to Quetzalcoatl or some other places in different civilizations. But what do you think? Do you guys think the Akashic record is real? You think Atlantis is real? Do you think? What do you think? What do you think? We got some comments in here. Todd, give us a call, man. Set it straight. 702-957-1037 or jump on Discord. This one's right down your alley. You and Kelly both. So give us a call. We got about one more time, 20 minutes left, 25 minutes left. So if you want to chime in and correct some of the falsities here, falsehoods, then we'd love it. We'd love it. That's why we did this show. And yeah, okay. So Todd says he was Quetzalcoatl. So okay. So apparently he left Egypt at some point. When he was run off with now this is this goes back to Zechariah Sitchin and the Lost Book of Enki and some of the Sumerian tablets that he dug into, but he had some kind of quarrel and he left Egypt. He was run out of there by I want to say Marduk was his brother, I believe. And so Thoth was the son of Enki, I believe. Again, I'm telling you, look this stuff up and you'll see there's so much contradicting information, but I did the best I could with, 10 million words. So that's what I gathered. He was a brother. They had a fight. He left Egypt and he went to South America, where he became Quetzalcoatl and helped the Mayan civilization prosper and build their pyramids and all of the things that you see down there. He's also attributed to. So not only building the pyramids in Egypt and hiding the emerald tablets and his spaceship there, which is straight out of the Lost Book of Enki and the Anunnaki, if you guys are familiar with that. If not, we've got a show we did on that, and I'm sure we'll touch that in the future. Got a call coming in here. I'm not sure from who, but I'll let it screen, and then we'll pick it up in a sec. So Quetzalcoatl, that was a feathered serpent god of the Mayans. So there we go. Adam says, in my opinion, they are real. The Vatican already has them, and they don't want you to know the truth. The only way to find out where would be to storm the Vatican. You know what? We've had comments on the Vatican before, and they get censored in real time on Facebook. So interesting that you got those comments through, right?
I was kind of thinking to myself that if these tablets are anywhere, and assuming they're not buried under the paw of the Sphinx, they've got to be in a collection somewhere. They've got to be hidden away in some collection, some private archaeology museum somewhere, and denied from us, denied from the public. Sumerian tablets and other writings from ancient histories that people have just hidden away and they don't want to share. They keep it for themselves for whatever reason. And it seems to me this is a very similar thing, that if they're out there, someone probably has their hands on them.
Yeah, right. Like the black market. Who would it be? It would be, who's the one that keeps buying all the ancient artifacts from the Middle East? Hobby Lobby. If you guys haven't seen it, look it up. They're basically buying stuff from ISIS. So Hobby Lobby is funding ISIS to shoot at us by buying some of the shit they smash and then send over here. Okay, so then Todd, I'll get you in a sec, Kelly. Todd says Marduk, aka Amun-Ra, kicked him out, so he went to Peru. Yeah, okay, so Thoth at some point went to South America. Here we go. We got Kelly. I'm going to put Kelly on. Good evening, Kelly. You are on with Frank and Mike, Troubled Minds Radio. What's happening, my man?
What's going on, fellas? How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good. It's talking about some interesting things. What kind of hot takes you got for us?
I just wanted to call up and go through some of this. Actually, I was going to read this tonight over and over, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. I've read it a few times, and even in the beginning it tells you that you're not only supposed to not read it once or twice, but 100 times. Because it's just like how you were saying, when you read it, it's almost like it's almost like a poem. So when you're reading it out loud and reading it how it's put out, it's like, it's got a rhythmic sound to it. So it's like, people feel like, and it even tells you that once you read it like that you will, that's when you start reading between the lines and getting the knowledge that's put out in here.
Right. Hold on, I think I have
one thing I wanted.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to read that one part in the spaceship. I didn't get to type it all in there, but when he talks about that he put his spaceship underneath the marker that looks like a lion and yet into a man. It also says, "Know ye, old man, the far in the future invader shall come. He shall come from out in the deep. Then awaken ye know the wisdom. Bring forth my ship and conquer with ease." And he also, if you guys are talking about, and write the next paragraph down, it just says, "The deep beneath the image, it lays my secret. Search and find the pyramid I built, each to the other in the keystone, each the gateway that leads into life. Follow the key and lead behind me. Seek, and the doorway to life shall be thine. Seek thou in the pyramid, deep in the passage, where it ends in a wall." We talked about this like when I think a couple of your guys' shows back, where I gave you guys some. There's a guy named Josh Reeves. He does a lot of these readings on these ancient books, like the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Book of Enki, He does a few different ancient books, but that's where I kind of like got some of this stuff, because he does his own research as well. But inside there, there's a video that he talks about that's on YouTube. You go in there, it talks about going up above the Queen's chamber. There was one of those little tunnels that they sent a little machine up inside there to take video of it, drill a hole, and then they stick the camera inside there. What they found out is when they put it in black light, that looks like a star system that's behind there. That's actually pretty crazy as well. But if you also look into, they found that new chamber, or the empty chamber that's above the king's chamber. There's they did ground penetrating radar. And there he also talks about that he left knowledge of some books, and he calls it the keys of a Mente. That's where he put in there. And once you get to the keys of a Mente, that you'll be able to contact him and do like you're talking about the Akashic records, and he would give you some explanations on the ancient knowledge or history. Pretty interesting, this book. You are correct that it also talks about how to reverse. You can stop aging and actually reverse it. That's in one of the tablet, I believe.
12.
Let's see here.
Yeah, I saw that one earlier. I'm gonna play this real quick. I'll keep you on the phone here, but I'm gonna play this. I've got a video from Ancient Astronaut Archive, and I think it's the guy you're talking about. So I'm gonna play this real quick. It's like an intro. He talks about the mysteries of the Emerald Tablets. So I'll leave you on and mute you, but then I'll turn you back on when we do this. But you'll be able to hear it. Here we go. Action.
Okay.
Some of the mysteries which as yet have only been touched upon lightly either by myself or other teachers or students of truth. Man's search for understanding of the laws which regulate his life have been unending, yet always just beyond the veil which shields the higher planes from material man's vision, the truth has existed, ready to be assimilated by those who enlarge their vision by turning inward, not outward, in their search. In the silence of material senses lies the key to the unveiling of wisdom. He who talks does not know. He who knows does not talk. The highest knowledge is unutterable, for it exists as an entity in lanes which transcend all material words or symbols. All symbols are but keys to doors leading to truths, and many times the door is not opened because the key seems so great that the things which are beyond it are not visible. If we can understand that all keys, all material symbols are manifestations, are but extensions of a great law and truth, we will begin to develop the vision which will enable us to penetrate beyond the veil. All things in all universes move according to law, and the law which regulates the movement of the planets is no more immutable than the law which regulates the material expressions of man.
There we go. So that's a little intro. So Todd says that's Gerald Clark, and thank you for that because I wasn't sure the guy's name. But if you go to Ancient Astronaut Archive, guys, on YouTube, he's got all of this. He reads all of the Emerald Tablets and the intros and a lot of this stuff. It's fantastic listening, and it's really well written and really well delivered, as you can tell. But yeah, okay. So thank you. Gonna unmute Kelly. Sorry about that. All right, there we go. I think you should be back on. What's up, Kelly?
What's going on?
Hey, so apparently Todd says that's Gerald Clark, and you're probably familiar with him, yes?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of his stuff. He does do some really good videos as well. But the guy I was talking about, his name is Josh Reeves.
Okay. My bad. I was hoping it was the same guy.
He also does some new. No, believe me, there's a lot of knowledge or a lot of information to be trying to consume about this stuff. Because, like you're right, there's no pictures of these emerald tablets. It's just history passed down that, even in Egypt, there was said that the tablets were thrown into the Nile River, and only one king, there was one person that went in there, but he died of a horrible death. And everybody who did, their families after that who, came across them. But yeah, these are ancient knowledge. Like that one time we were, I think it was maybe 2 shows ago, where it talks about where he stopped off when we were talking about draining great power, and right before it was going to talk about reptilians or like shape-shifting beings that like for dark, but he says they're serpent-headed when the glamour is lifted, but appearing as men among men among men. They crept into councils, taking forms, word that like unto men, slaying their arts and chiefs of the kingdoms and taking over their form and ruling over men. So then that one was in, that one's actually Emerald Tablet number 8, the Keys of Mystery. I mean, it's
and that's talking about,
because it actually, like you were saying, a lot of these things parallel with each other, just like ancient Sumerian writing. All this stuff parallels. That's why they were talking about they were Quetzalcoatl. Everybody just changed their names. All these ancient history stories, they seem to be all like parallel, like you say, run next to each other. All it is changing names.
Yeah, it seems like all of anthropology, right? The further back you go, the more you run into the same story over and over. Just the names have been changed to protect the innocent, right? It seems like that's the way they do these things. Yeah. Okay. So anything else on Emerald? We got there's a ton more. We'll have to do more of this in the future, and there's so much to get into that 2 hours is just not enough. But so far, let's recap this. Anything real quick there, Kelly? You want to add before we cut you off?
No, I just this is actually one of my this one and Lost Book of Inky is actually one of the two, like me and Todd was saying, they were one of the books that like really interest, because they talk about, at least these ones talk about ancient knowledge. So after I've been delve into more of this, I started looking into more ancient books that talk about spells or how to, because even all those ancient writings talk about like spells, or even in the Bible they even talk about witches. So it's that type of stuff is I believe is still prevalent, and maybe that's why all the Catholic religion stole all that ancient knowledge and got that kept underneath the bottom down there. But yeah, so good. This is a good show. So yeah, you guys ever do another show, just delve directly into it. I mean, I got a bunch of stuff that's highlighted and marked down as one of the stuff you guys could go through. Where some people, if they're interested, get buy the book and read it themselves.
Okay, so the next time we do this, Frank and I were talking about there's so much here that there's no way we can cover in one show. So we will revisit, and when we do, I'll reach out to you and see if we can get you on for a little bit and read some of the stuff that you got, because we'd love to hear it.
Will do.
All right, appreciate the call, man.
What book are you reading these in? Like, I found links for these things on the internet, but is there a good published book to read them?
Yeah, if you go, there's a few authors. What they do is if I've read, a couple books, where even audiobooks for people reading it. So if you read them along with them, like I said, like with Josh Reese, this one is from J.J. Rover, and it's called The Emerald Tablet of Thoth, the Atlanteans. But each one of these actually, it doesn't really matter. It's just how they're writing is, and they'll give you a little bit, in the preface, in the beginning of they talk about the tablets, where it came from, how it's translated, passed down, the children of Chem. But yeah, this one is just by J.J. Rover, and where the information they get from, they'll explain it to you, in the, like I said, in the preface. But and then they give their introduction of the interpretation of it. But yeah, a lot of this stuff is from the Cosmic Harmony, the real and the supreme voice of the Brotherhood. These guys are if you just like I say, just research a lot of that stuff. But if you do want to, this one is from the author is this one is J.J. Rover, R-O-V-E-R.
Yeah, I just found it on Amazon, one-click ordered. So I'm going to go through this in more detail because this is a fascinating topic. So J.J. Rover. Yep, I found it.
Got it.
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
And it's actually what's one more thing is that in here I've been practicing as well. It's where they say you can slow your age or your aging, or actually even reverse it. But and it's actually pretty simple. How he says is you have to lay an hour with your head pointing north and south. So it's actually 2 hours, an hour north and an hour south. and then you're supposed to like try to think of your seat of your soul, or the seat of your seat of your body from your, like, around your stomach, because they say, you know, in ancient times too, is your stomach is just as smart as your brain. So you just think about that, your seat, and then all your energy out from your head, and then or out from your feet, whatever way you're laying. And that's more at the very end, Frank, if you want to end the book. If you want to know some of that one. But, like, he tells you incantations. And actually a pretty interesting read.
Okay. Hey, Kelly, couple things. If you figure out how to stop the aging, would you please make us first on your list? Because we want to know.
Sure will. Actually, I'm still practicing. Me and my wife do almost daily before we go to bed, or, you know. Okay. I'll let you know if it's working.
Okay, appreciate it, man. And the other thing, thanks for the call, man. I appreciate it. Have a great night, okay? Thanks, man.
Okay, you too.
All right. So what do you think, guys?
Let me jump in there real quick. That's interesting that it mentions the stomach being smart as the brain, because recently in the news, I don't know if you followed this, but they found a nerve connection between the stomach and the brain. So what you eat is directly transmitted to your brain through this nervous connection between your brain and your stomach. So there is a link there. And just an interesting tidbit that was in these tablets and in these writings, and scientists have just now rediscovered.
There you go. We're regurgitating the technology. Okay, so we're going to recap this. Run out of time, but so we talked about Plato. We talked about Atlantis. We talked about, is it a real place? Is it not? Did it sink? If it did sink and it was real, did the Great Flood sink it? That's the second poll here. So the first was unanimous. People thought Atlantis was actually a real place. Second poll here, we got, did the Great Flood sink Atlantis? We got 75% say yes, that is very possible. 25% say no, it was something else. So if you guys have ideas on what that might be, type it in chat, and we'll talk about what something else is. Okay, so then once Atlantis sunk, assuming it's a real place, the individuals that lived there had to evacuate, of course, and they ended up living in different places. One being ancient Egypt, and some of the people, this one known as Thoth, T-H-O-T-H, was a prophet, a alchemist, the daddy of all alchemists, let's say, the godfather, and he went to Egypt and then eventually South America and helped them build those civilizations. So this also goes back to the Lost Book of Enki, and Thoth himself is part of that family and had some actual feuds with the ancient alien theory. So you see how this is all kind of tied in. So we talked about Planet X, Nibiru. We talked about Enki and Ea, his father, and Enlil, his brother. All that stuff is in a previous show if you want to check some of that out. And there's a ton of it. So we kind of just scratched the surface and talked about it. But so now Thoth turns out to be an individual that continues to show up through history with different names, of course. So we've got Thoth, we've got what was it, Quetzalcoatl. I saw some stuff that was actually saying he was actually Jesus. So like I was telling Frank, man, like they put this guy all over history. Like he's responsible for everything. So kind of Prometheus, the firebringer, and yeah. So here we are. This is what we're talking about. And
just another commonality I've noticed between all these stories is that we often see this idea of gods and half gods, and again, this is a terrible term, but mud people, right? And we saw that, I think, with the Anunnaki stuff, right? The gods came to Earth. They either uplifted or bred with the native Earthlings, and they created, a slave race, and they were the ones who later rebelled. So we have this idea of mixings, genetic mixings, where we have gods and half gods and humans or native Earthlings of some kind. And so we see it here in Atlantis with Poseidon and breeding with, forget her name right now, but giving rise to Atlas as the son who took over. And we're seeing it again with the Anunnaki stuff. So this idea that gods are coming to Earth, and of course gods could be aliens, and well, then you can take it from there.
So that would be the mud people that we talked about in the beginning there, with Plato and the rest of that, right? But I guess there was the Igigi. We talked about that with the Lost Book of Enki, and then how they ended up staying on Earth and all kinds of stuff. So if you guys are into this, you know what to do. Look into this stuff. It's fascinating. It literally goes back to three-quarters of a million years ago, 750,000 years ago, and we're talking about ancient aliens that turned into, gods in some way, shape, or form. And so Todd adds in Poseidon is Enki and Zeus is Enlil. So it's literally back to the Anunnaki, back to ancient aliens. That's the stuff you see right on that show. It's a lot of stuff they talk about. So it's intertwined. These stories are recycled and from many thousands of years ago. So there we go. That's where we're at. So the Emerald Tablets, they are currently lost. They're supposedly buried in ancient Egypt, which is no longer ancient, of course, but under the paw of the Sphinx. So one day when
it seems to me that taking all this story as a whole, taking all these ideas and all these myths and legends and history, somehow, some way, we've got to get to the Giza Plateau and start drilling, start digging it up, start blasting the pyramid apart, get in these secret cavities, dig up that spaceship, find these tablets. These things are apparently, according to the stories, they're indestructible. They don't decay. So we can throw some dynamite down there and blow the whole thing up. What do you think of that?
Well, don't blow it all up. I want to see what's down there, man. Come on, you're breaking my heart. You're turning into ISIS over here. ISIS.
We got to get this knowledge somehow, right? And it seems the Egyptians are, they want to preserve their tourism market. They don't want people digging the place up. They really don't want the Sphinx and the pyramids attributed to anything but Egyptians. They want to have that as part of their cultural identity. But it seems to me that if there is something under that paw, we have to get at it. We really have to get at it. So what can we do to get underneath the Sphinx?
Well, just like that chamber they unearthed recently that we were talking about in that few shows back. What was it? The Chamber of Osiris, right? I believe that was what it was called. They hid what they found under there. So even if they find it, what are they going to do? They're going to smuggle it away. They're going to hide it in some museum because it doesn't fit the history they want us to believe. And so I think you're right. If we're going to do this, we have to take it back. But of course, I'm not advocating for violence, so don't label me that way. But we do have to take back the information, because the information that they give us, that they feed us, that they try and tell us is our lives. It doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to take their narrative. We don't have to swallow it hook, line, and sinker. We can ask our own questions, and that's why we're here. That's what we're doing. So a few more comments here. Anything to add there, Frank?
Yeah, sorry, this is a big sidetrack, but there's that old story of this cave in the Grand Canyon where you go inside it. There was Egyptian iconography and things like that, Egyptian mummies and things in this cave. And apparently it was cordoned off by the military. It was cordoned off, so you can't access that area anymore. And I'm thinking, we got to go there. We got to sneak in somehow. We got to find out what's really in this place.
Okay. Are you setting a time and day, and we're getting an expedition together? Are we doing this? Is that what you're saying?
That's what we need, right? That's the perfect word. You just said it. Expeditions. We need more expeditions. We need to actually go to these places and figure out what's going on as people instead of governments, as people instead of academic organizations. Because you're right, they're taking the knowledge away from us. And, maybe dynamite is an overreaction, but we got to get in there somehow.
Well, yeah, we got to know. One way or the other, we got to know. A few good comments here I skipped. Adam says, the human mind, that is the key. Yes. It seems like that's had some very good parallels to what we're talking about in unlocking the Akashic records and the what's on the Emerald tablets. But don't worry, guys. When Kelly figures out how to stop the aging, we're the first to know. So you guys will be second. We'll do a show about it, and yeah, we're all about that. We're all about that. I noticed a new wrinkle today. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, and then hold on. Juan says, "Love this show." Hey, thanks, man. That's an important comment. And then, okay, what else do we got? So Todd's got a bunch of great knowledge on this, but we're kind of at the end here. So let's see, what else we got? Adam says, sadly, Hitler was already there. Maybe. Already where? Let us know. And then Kelly says, I believe the mud people are us humans. The reason for that is because they had to make a vessel made out of mud from Earth to have their DNA mixed with the creature they found there. That was the only way the DNA would mix properly. Yeah, that was on the Enki Chronicles there with Zechariah Sitchin and those tablets, the Sumerian tablets. And then Kelly says, I would also say the bull is the Fuente Magna bull they found in South America. I'm not sure what that means. The article. Yeah, we're running out of time here. We'll get to that another time. We'll talk about it on the news on the Tuesday show. And he says, look up the translations from the bull. And then Thoth says there was giants found in that cave too. Yeah, fantastic. Again, we're talking about giants. We're talking about Atlas, right? It was one of the original titans from ancient Greece. Funny how all this is a parallel. We have, this goes through the biblical stories. We're talking about the flood. We're talking about Atlantis. And so literally in a timeline, we've got Planet X, Nibiru. We've got the Anunnaki, which is like ancient aliens, like you'd see straight off the show. And then we have Atlantis. Okay, I skipped a bunch, of course. But then we have ancient Egypt. We have the biblical stories of the flood. We have South America with the Mayans and Quetzalcoatl. There's kind of a long train of information here that's literally 1 million years long. And it's curious that it kind of all sticks. It kind of all ends up in the same vein. It ends up kind of making like it's the same story, right? Seem peculiar, Frank?
You take away the assumption that the ancient peoples were stupid. You take that assumption away, because that's what a lot of this academia is built on. That these ancient peoples were stupid and they had no idea what they were talking about. And they were seeing lights in the sky and attributing it to ghosts and aliens and goblins. But take that assumption away that they were stupid and reanalyze all this data, and it starts to make a little bit more sense.
It sure seems to. Again, a lot of parallels. Adam says, he says, sadly, Hitler was already there. Now the comment makes sense, because he says he dug up Egypt, found the records, and burned the books. So they did. Hitler actually did a lot of that. They were, it's widely known that they spent a lot of time digging in a lot of places trying to find these ancient relics so they could use them for their own gain, their own power. And sadly, a lot of that stuff went missing. There's actually been fakes where it looks like they smuggled away the real stuff and replaced it with fakes. So when the Allies came in, took these treasure troves back, a lot of it was actually fake stuff, and they don't have no idea where the real actual treasures are. So that's tragic, and yeah, that's a good point. So possibly, if Hitler was there, then maybe this stuff is gone in Antarctica. Right? Is that where it'd be, Frank? Antarctica?
Yeah, you never know.
You never know.
Inside the inner Earth, who knows?
There you go.
It's funny. Just another side note. I saw a Reddit post today where people are organizing an expedition to the North Pole to go there and to try to access the inner Earth. And this guy's a plan. He expects some people to die along the way, but it seemed pretty serious. So we'll share that link on the website if you want to sign up for this guy's expedition. Personally, I'm not going to.
I did see that also. So he put in the post here that don't contact him to go unless you're willing to die. Right? Oh man. Yeah. So I did read the same thing. That's pretty funny. And not funny. Please don't. If you guys do the expedition, please don't go and die. That would be not good. Okay, so then Adam says Hitler and his mysterious group went on a relic crusade. People should start looking in Germany and then at the Vatican for information. Yeah, the Vatican, right? That's one of those sovereign countries that we'll never get answers from. It's going to have to fall before we get the actual answers they've got. I'm sure they've got some dirty stuff in those archives. And then Kelly says, as a matter of fact, German museums had thousands of ancient Sumerian texts. The Germans found something. There you go. And then Todd says that's why they went to Antarctica. Yeah, to look for that stuff, right? I think that's part of what that expedition actually was for, to find some of that hidden Nazi treasure that they couldn't account for. So there you go, guys. We talked about Atlantis. We talked about the Emerald Tablets. We talked about Thoth. We talked about Plato and all these things. The biblical flood, ancient aliens. Man, it's a mouthful. So again, 2 hours is not enough. We have to just scratch the surface here. But if you guys are interested in more of this stuff, look into the Lost Book of Enki, Zechariah Sitchin. Look up the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, Thoth is how you spell that. And you'll be amazed at how some of this stuff kind of lines up. Of course, look into Plato, and his Republic is amazing. Didn't get to comment on that one there, Frank, but that's a very, very, very good read. Interesting, makes you think quite a bit. So there you go. Got another minute or two left. You guys want to hop on, get on the show, 702-957-1037, or jump on Discord, and you can give us feedback. You can tell us whatever you want to tell us. You can just say hi. That's okay. If you want to call and just tell us hi. Todd says, look into the Kabalyon, Kabalyon. Not sure what that is. We can look at that on. Let's talk about that on Tuesday. If you want to come tell us, Todd, we'd appreciate that, and we'll look into that a little bit more. So yeah, here we are. We're at the end. We did it. We did it, Frank. We did another one. What do you think?
I want to mount an expedition now. Like, I'm serious. I think we got to take the power back, so to speak. I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere in this country, what with Werner von Braun coming over to work on the rocketry programs, what with us offering clemency to all these Nazis, if somewhere in this country there's a vault, and in that vault we have some of this stuff, wouldn't surprise me one bit. Yeah, agreed. In those Indiana Jones movies, right, where they put the Lost Ark, one of those warehouse, right, that type of thing. And then Kelly says, "I'm with you, Frank. Let's do it." There you go. We got a third, man. We got a third, Frank. Let's do it. Let's set something up. Okay, so another side note right there. Todd says he's in. We got 4. So another side note is that the Lost Ark is actually one of the apparently the final resting places of the Emerald Tablets. I did read that somewhere, so it all ties together. It all ties together. So there we go. All right, I'm gonna cue the outro here. So let's wind this sucker down, and let's do this. Anything else, Frank? Nope, that's it.
No, that's it.
Looking into this stuff, we're gonna keep reading about these tablets and all these things. And you're right. Is the more we do this, the more it all seems to fit together in some kind of obscene, paranoid, schizophrenic puzzle. But it's all fitting together, and it's starting to worry me a little bit.
Well, okay. I concur, because I'm worried for you. All right. Hey, so if you guys want to help us out, this is my chance to beg you for help. We're starting to get a little bit of traction in some places, but we need help. We need reviews on iTunes, Stitcher. We need reviews on Google Play Music. We need reviews on Spotify. We are now on Spotify. So if you guys want to check us out there, leave us reviews, thumbs ups, always help. And if you've got feedback for the show, troubledmindsradio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear it. Yeah. It's a mouthful. We need your help. So, yeah. Do all the social things. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your family, tell everybody, because we'll be nice to all of them. And we appreciate the support. Appreciate you guys sticking with us. And I did submit us to, what is that called? TuneIn Radio. So hopefully we'll be on there as well. So if you guys want to help us out, go to all those places, leave us reviews, leave us thumbs ups, and tell your friends, do all the social things. So there you go. There's my last little bit of help us, please. But otherwise, you're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange. I'm here with your co-host, Frank Pierce. Thanks for listening. And from our Troubled Minds to yours, have a great night.